North of Mount Shasta in California, there's a transition zone from this pine forest to high desert grassland. And in that area, there's a location known as the Tennant Mounds. This is basically a series of 18 mounds, some of which are like 5 to 6 feet tall. And they're laid out in this intriguing sequence. So there's been a lot of speculation about them, basically because they're right next to the high strangeness capital of the world, Mount Shasta. You have a lot of UFO sightings there. You have legends around Telos and Lemuria, claims of strange portals to other worlds. You have odd robed beings coming out of nowhere. It goes on and on. It's like this grab bag of paranormal phenomena. So with these mounds, people have speculated that maybe there's some kind of like alien landing zone, a crop circle-esque scape that they can use as a navigation aid. Although crop circles, well, they're usually more sophisticated, they're more precise, and they don't manipulate Earth into mounds, as far as I know, unless maybe they set their crop circle array on high setting, or they've been drinking, making a mess of things. Or perhaps, maybe they're one of those areas where giants are buried. The giants of old, one of my favorite subjects actually. Believe it or not, there are many finds in the early 20th century of giant bones found within the Indian mounds across America. Some of the finds are reported to have skulls in them with double dentition, 2 rows of teeth, and some as big as 12 feet tall. Most people back then were convinced that there were a race of giants who roamed the earth at one point because all of this evidence that came out of these mounds. Now it's like been pushed out of our cultural memory, and if you bring that kind of stuff up to people, they just think you're crazy. But anyway, we had a look at the reason for the construction of the Tennant Mounds because there are areas around there that have interesting and ancient rock lines that kind of spiral up hills and stuff. And those remain a mystery. So if there were an ancient burial site here, it could be related to that stuff, and maybe we would pick up on that. Also, or if it were some kind of crop circle scape, our data could potentially reflect that. So what did we get? Well, interestingly, our data doesn't even go down those paths at all. Basically what we got were birds, lots of birds. Birds flying low over the ground, baby birds, eggs, nests, and then we have this water that flows through the area as well. When you don't get weird stuff, you got to explain why you don't get weird stuff. I mean, weird stuff is easy, it's like you don't have to explain why the weird stuff is weird because you can't really, it just is. So to dig deeper, to explain the non-weird stuff, the birds and the water, we looked at method of construction just to see where that led. If it were a burial or an ancient construction and the birds were just some kind of fluke, perhaps we would have this feeling of reverence from people and maybe using primitive implements. And if it were some kind of high strangeness thing, perhaps we would get energy used to create it. But when we viewed that side of it, our data clearly reflected heavy metallic machinery scraping and pushing the ground, basically bulldozers, which reflects a more modern and conventional construction. So we've got birds, we've got water flow, and we've got modern construction. And we've got to find out why. So looking at the area, this site lies in the Klamath National Forest, right near a marshy area, which birds, well, they tend to like that. The U.S. Department of Agriculture and the California government provided subsidies for private landowners to create these nesting habitats for migrating birds in that area. Now, while I haven't found anything specific to these mounds, this is a construction method to create these habitats, and this area was targeted just for that. Basically, the water flows between these mounds and it protects the birds that are nesting there from any predators as they migrate through that area. So we don't have aliens, we don't have an ancient burial site, but that doesn't mean there isn't anything weird going on around here, as we've seen before. It's just that not everything is something. And with remote viewing, you can begin to untangle these mysteries.